So we've had a look at various systems in the human body, and we're going to be having a look in this video at plant transport systems. And by that what I mean, so we're going to be having a look at this word here called transpiration. Now transpiration is really the evaporation of water from the leaf surface of the plant, but that water getting there, it involves the water being absorbed through the roots of the plant, water travelling up through the plant stem, and then water evaporating from the leaf surface. Now, involved in the movement of that water are vessels called xylem, and we're going to look at these in more detail just in a moment. And there's also another type of vessel that's found in the stem of a plant, and it's called phloem, and it is involved in the movement of sugars about the plant. So let's have a wee look at in more detail about all of these structures. So you get the movement of water from the soil. So we've got water molecules here, and they are absorbed into the roots from the surrounding cell. The water moves by osmosis, and it moves into the root hair cells. So we've got these root hairs here, and they're ideal because what happens is these hairs help to increase the surface area, to increase the volume of water that can be moving in here by osmosis. Now, it's thought that this moving of the water into the plant helps to sort of push the water up the plant. And from the roots, these root cells, the water then moves into the xylem that is represented here by these cells, and we'll have a look at that in more detail just in a moment. So here's a diagram here just looking at what xylem is, and basically your xylem are tubes that run their way up the stem of the plant. So once the water's been absorbed into the roots, it's carried up the xylem tissue up towards the leaves. So you could just kind of imagine there's maybe some leaves up here. Art isn't my strong point, but they're here, and this is the stem part of the plant here, these tubes. So there are lots of these tubes, and what happens is that the water and dissolved minerals are able to travel up that xylem up towards the leaves. Now, xylem is made up of dead tissue. What happens is as it's being formed from meristem tissue, if you remember back, undifferentiated cells, what happens is the individual cells that are there, the plant cells, they lose their cell wall here to form just continuous tubes, and also the cell contents that are in here, that just all goes because basically it's just dead tissue. It's just these tubes. Now you'll notice on this here, on this diagram, I've got these sort of ring-like structures that are here. These are a substance called lignin, and lignin is a wee bit like the cartilage that holds your trachea open, that's going down towards the bronchi. Lignin are rings. They're not made up of cartilage, but they're rings of a strong substance that is able to hold the xylem vessel open. So these lignin rings help to keep the xylem tissue open. Now, a wee bit like a straw in glass, in a glass, the water sort of sticks up the sides of the xylem, and that helps it move upwards against the gravity. They're actually not really totally certain as to why it is, or the mechanism by which water moves up xylem. There are various theories, and we don't need to look at those at National 5. So that's our xylem. Now the other beauty of the lignin is that it helps the stem of the plant to be able to withstand the pressure changes as the water moves through the plant. Let's go on and have a look at our phloem. Now, phloem isn't actually directly linked to the transpiration stream, that is the stream of water moving up the plant and then being evaporated out of the leaves. But phloem are situated next to the xylem tissue within a plant, and the phloem tissue, unlike the xylem, the phloem tissue is actually living, and it's tubes as well, again as well. It's made up of living cells, and it's involved in carrying sugars and other inorganic molecules all around the plant. That is upwards and downwards, whereas your water is moving up your plant. And this here is just looking at some phloem cells. So here's a phloem cell here, and it's made up, you'll see, of something called a companion cell where the nucleus is, and it's made up of this sort of end plate here and things called sieve tubes. Now these wee holes that are here, these sieve tubes are moving through these, and these help to transport the sugar up and down the phloem. Now, when the water gets up to the leaves, some of the cells will use that water, and that is the spongy mesophyll and the palisade mesophyll. They will use some of that water for photosynthesis, because obviously water is needed for the process of photosynthesis. But the rest of the water that is there is lost by evaporation, and it's lost by evaporation through something called stomata, or here the singular is just stoma. So stomata sounds a bit like a tomato. Stomata spelt like that. Basically they are pores that are found, and most of the, well, they're found in the underleaf of the underside of the leaf, so down at the bottom part of the leaf, and these stomata are what are involved in letting water out, evaporate from the leaf, and the pores are able to be opened and closed by something called guard cells. They are found on either side. Now what I've got here, and I'll just see if I can get this just up a bit larger here, is this is a photograph of stomata from a microscope. So we're looking at the underside of a leaf, and these here, or that there, that is the stoma or the pore. So you're looking into a hole in the underside of the leaf, and this is the stoma. It's open, and this stoma here, you'll see there's just this little line here, is closed. Now at either side of here you'll see these cells that are here. These are called the guard cells, and basically what happens is that when there's a lot of water there, these guard cells have taken in the water by diffusion, and they become turgid, and that makes them form this kind of sausage-like shape that opens up the stomata, and water is able to evaporate out of that. And if though there's not a lot of water about, then the guard cells aren't as turgid, and the stoma or the stomata, they end up being closed, like this one that's here. Now the stomata also allow carbon dioxide to diffuse into the plant, and they're also involved in letting oxygen diffuse out of the plant. So as well as being involved in transpiration, they're involved in photosynthesis. And we'll go on to have a wee look on the next video at measuring transpiration rates.